Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to look at the buy list for Silver Tempest, the cards you need to build whatever deck you want. Now, my usual rules apply when I'm going for the any buy list. I'm not going to tell you to make specific decks. So we all know by now that Lugia V-Star is going to be the best deck in the format. And if you want to play Lugia, you're probably going to need 4 Lugia V, 3 Lugia V-Star, 3 or 4 Archeops, and this is going to get very, very expensive. And you might not want to play Lugia, and there's a lot of money to spend out if you're not going to play Lugia. So if you want to play Lugia, go and get those cards. But if you don't want to play Lugia, don't go and get those cards. My goal here is to tell you which cards you need in your binder, so that if you ever want to turn around and make a deck, you might need to buy the main attackers, but that's okay. You'll only need to buy your main attackers, and you can pivot into any deck you want. No one's ever scrambling around when they get to a big tournament looking for Lugia, because if you're going to play that, you've got it in advance. It is the weirder tech cards that people are always scrabbling around for, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is where I come in. So I think you needed 2 copies of Ariados. It makes your opponent's V-Stars attacks cost 1 colorless energy more. It doesn't stack, so you don't need really more than a couple. But it's still an ability that you may wish to take advantage of in a bunch of decks in the future. I think you need yourself a full 4 copies of Amoonguss. It's got the redonkulous ability Surprise Spores. During your opponent's turn, if this Pokemon is discarded from your hand by an effect of an attack or ability from your opponent's Pokemon, discard their entire hand. If we ever see a situation where hand disruption becomes big, this is the best counter to hand disruption we will ever have. So pick them up now, because the other thing is, the cards I'm telling you now are mostly going to be very cheap. If hand disruption becomes big, Amoonguss becomes big, the price will spike. You need a copy of Radiance Arena, like you need a copy of most Radiant Pokemon. Once during your turn, you can heal 20 from each of your Pokemon. In any deck that can take a hit and then retreat and then start healing, Radiance Arena is going to be amazing. Rapidash, you need 4 Rapidash, because if you ever play a fire deck, you're probably playing Rapidash. Once during your turn, you can discard a fire energy from your hand, and then all of your fire Pokemon's attacks do 30 more to your opponent's active. Remember, this will stack, but you need to discard 1 energy per Rapidash ability. You can't discard 1 energy and activate all 4. Still, we've seen abilities like this in the past be very, very good. Now, I do think you need a copy of Alolan Vulpix V-Star, but do feel free to skip this one if you so wish. The reason essentially is that it's got an attack for 0 energy that does 70 damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon V in play. If they've got 5 Pokemon V in play, you'll be doing 350 damage and getting a 1-hit KO on anything. If they've got 4 in play, you'll be doing 280 and getting a 1-hit KO on V-Stars. It's a 0 energy V-Star power that can get a 1-hit KO on a 2 or 3 prize Pokemon. I think having a 1-1 line of Alolan Vulpix in some decks could be a very, very cheeky tech indeed. It's one that I'd consider. Now, Omastar V I don't really like, but for 1 colorless energy, you can grab 2 Pokemon that evolve from a fossil and bench them. I think you may well end up giving up 2 prizes because you might get KO'd afterwards, but if you ever play a fossil deck, you're probably going to need a couple of Omastar. Now, Raichu, I think you need 2 to 4 of these, and this is basically just a great counter against lightning-weak Pokemon. If your opponents use their V-Star power, you do 140, which of course doubled is 280, what these V-Stars generally have. And sure, your opponent can just not use their V-Star power, I get it, but also by the same token, if they don't use their V-Star power, their deck's going to be slower and worse, or they might have to use their V-Star power, and that's where Raichu comes in and smashes. Now, Regieleki V-Max, I get that it's a V-Max, and I generally don't tend to tell you to buy the V-Maxes, and you may well need 4 of these. But if you play any Lightning deck in the future, you're probably going to want to consider Regieleki V-Max, because it's got the ability Transistor that says your basic Lightning Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. And that's actually really good. And it does stack. So I think if you're playing lightning decks in the future, you need to seriously be considering playing this. So I do think you need to pick some up. Sorry. Now, Radiant Alakazam, like most Radiant Pokemon, I do think you need a copy of this one. It's got an ability that lets you move 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another. It's not the most played Radiant Pokemon, and it's not going to become the most played Radiant Pokemon. But there are going to be a bunch of decks where moving damage counters can be huge, and in this, you're going to need this. Now, Jinx is one I think you need 4 copies of, because for 2 colourless energy, meaning it can be teched into a whole bunch of decks, you deal 10 damage plus 10 more for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. You basically double their damage plus 10. But also you've got an ability that if it's knocked out by a Pokemon V, you don't give up a prize. Yeah, that's really good. And I think this is ripe to be taken advantage of. Now, Unknown V, not the V-Star, just the V. I love Unknown V. Because for 3 colourless energy, if you've got 1 prize card remaining, you flat out win the game. I think this can be teched into a bunch of decks, and I think you need one. Now, Curlier, you do need 4 copies, because it's got that ability that lets you discard a card from your hand to draw 2 cards. Right now, you can easily skip this because Chinchino is a thing, and Chinchino's got 90 HP and a better attack. So right now, by all means, don't play this, play Chinchino. But when we hit rotation, early next year, Chinchino will rotate out. And this will become your best option. Go and get a playset of this now, ladies and gentlemen, before the price spikes up. Also, do bear in mind that Gardevoir's got the same ability with lots more HP. I don't know if you really need any of these, but do please bear it in mind. Sigilyph, you need 1 to 4 copies for the attack warning. Lets you search for a basic Pokemon and bench it. Nobody cares. But if your opponent's active is a Pokemon V, you can search for 5 basic and bench them instead. That could be a very good way to set up a whole bunch of decks, and that's why I think you need some. Now, Radiant Jirachi, again, you just need 1 copy of this. I like Radiant Jirachi. Radiant Jirachi's got a really nice ability that if it is knocked out by damage from an attack, search for any free cards and put them in your hand. It's actually got a nice little attack as well. 2 energy, flip 2 coins, if double heads, instant KO. You're not going to hit it often, but there are going to be some decks that really basically want this, and they go, you know what? I'm just going to flip double heads. And if I don't, that's fine. You'll KO me and I search for any free cards, but I might flip double heads in the meantime, and that's okay by me. Oh yeah, and a quick apology for going out of order here. I skipped over Skuntank V. I think you need 1 or 2 Skuntank, because for 2 colourless energy, and colourless energy means it can easily be teched into any deck, it does 150 to a Pokemon that retreated last turn. This is something I think we should be considering teching into a bunch of decks. And then I think we need to finish Pokemon at least with 1 to 4 copies of Smeargle. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck for 1 colourless energy and attach any number of basic energy you find to one of your Pokemon. If you don't mind giving up prizes in the early game getting set up, and we all know there are cards that can take advantage of having given up prizes, yeah, Smeargle to get energy on the field could be fun. Now, Brandon, I think we need 4 copies, and this is a nice time to remind you of my rule for trainers. Generally speaking, get 4 of everything. You never know what's going to be good. Brandon, if it's the only card in your hand, lets you draw a card for each bench Pokemon. That could be a draw 10. This is going to see play. You need 4. Candice lets you look at the top 7 cards of your deck, find any number of water Pokemon and water energy, put them into your hand. Great for setting up in water decks. Capturing Aroma lets you flip a coin if heads grab an evolution, if tails grab a basic. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I've seen it popping up in some decks. Earth and Seal Stone lets you... It gives a V-Star power to any Pokemon V, including V-Star and V-Max. The for free colourless energy lets you put damage counters on each Pokemon V, including V-Star and V-Max, until its remaining HP is 100. This is going to see play, and it really depends. If it's the main part of your deck, you probably need 4. If it's a tech, you can probably get away with 2. Emergency Jelly's an odd one. It's a tool that if you've got 30 or less HP remaining and any damage counters, you heal 120. A lot of the time, your opponent's not going to fall for Emergency Jelly, but they might just not bother attacking, so either they attack and they fall for it or they don't attack, either way, you're fine. I don't know how much play it's going to see, but I'm going to have some in my binder just in case. Forest Steel Stone is utterly broken. It's another tool you attach to a Pokemon V to give a V-Star power, but it lets you search your deck for any card. This will be in any deck that plays Pokemon V but doesn't have a V-Star power they're planning on. This should be the go-to. It is broken. Furisode Girl lets you search your deck for a basic, put it on your bench, and then maybe switch it to the active. It's gonna see a bunch of play. Lance lets you search for up to 3 Dragon Pokemon and put them into your hand. In Dragon decks, it could be pretty good. Leafy Camo Poncho stops supporter cards affecting your Pokemon V-Star or V-Max. It's going to be good in some decks. Primordial Altar lets you look at the top card of your deck and you can either put it in your hand or discard it. So it's a little bit of draw, but it's also a little bit of discard that some decks really want. Professor Laventon lets you search for 3 Pokemon with a Sui in their name in your discard pile and put them into your hand, which could be very useful for some decks. Quadstone, if you play all 4 at once, lets you heal all damage from all of your Pokemon. That's kind of awesome if you can pull it off. Serena is an absolute staple that's going to be in basically every deck, because either you discard up to 3 cards from your hand and draw until you have 5 cards in hand, or you switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon V with their active. It's either draw or gusting. It's absolutely brilliant. Serena is broken and is going to see a redonkulous amount of play. Wallace and Worker, I mean, they're both draw 3, and then Wallace could be a draw 4, and Worker can discard a stadium. I think they're both pretty terrible, but I'm just going to mention them quickly. Regenerative Energy, when you evolve a Pokemon V into a V-Star or V-Max, you heal 100. That can be huge in some decks. And V-Guard Energy will be huge in a lot of decks because it reduces damage done by Pokemon V by 30. And sure, it doesn't stack, so it's not perfect, but I assure you we are going to be seeing this in a lot of decks moving forward. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the cards you need to buy. The whole list is up on the screen right now, and the deal is really very simple. If you want to play a particular deck, you're going to need to go and buy the attackers, and that's absolutely fine. The goal of this was very simply, these are the cards that you're not always necessarily thinking about, the cards that you need to have in your binder because you might want to play them in the future, and if you've got all of these and you follow my buy list, sure, you might need to buy your main attackers for whatever deck you want to play, but that's all you'll ever need. So there we go. Now it's over to you guys. Tell me which cards that aren't on my buy list should be. Tell me which cards that are on my buy list shouldn't be. Maybe do your own in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk Pokemon and card games and Pokemon card games and all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts to answer all of your questions, join a Discord where we chat Pokemon, and get some shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Edgar Menares, who has been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So thank you to Edgar for the support and for being a very lovely person. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.